what it mean to be the best. Riding forward, feeling unimpressed. Make me reminisce, throwing bows, bend the corner, set my mind up on the goal. All I know is stay down, bad, I'm the goal. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now ain't no debate. Yeah. Okay, feel like the best, the great. Now ain't no debate. Yeah. I ain't gotta say much. Know the boy got a touch. Another win for the rush. Another win for the rush. See me once and got a crush. See you twice and that's enough. Get the ring sized up.
What's up? Welcome to Tell the Truth. Yours truly, DMac. We got DG. CJ will not be joining us today for our mid-season review, in which we'll be going down every single one of the Chiefs' positions and how they've performed so far this year. DG, how you feeling, man?
I'm good, man. I'm blessed. Woke up for another day. It's Sunday. God is great.
Absolutely. All the time, man. All the time. Love to see it. So, yeah, look, nothing too crazy as far as the episode today. We're just going to dive into it position by position and be able just to talk about who's kind of overperformed, who's underperformed. And it felt like it was a good time. We obviously have the Monday night game coming up here tomorrow versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chiefs have some divisional games under the belt. They also have some NFC opponents that they face to this point. So want to kind of take a 3,000-foot view at what you've seen from the roster at this aspect of the season as well. So I think it is worth saying this is a team that's performed great on both sides. It's not great. Performed very well on both sides of the ball. Obviously, the only undefeated team in the NFL. They're 2 games clear in the AFC. We know all of those things. Their offense, as far as efficiency is concerned, been up there with one of the best in the National Football League. They're number 1 as far as success rate is concerned. They've suffered from penalties and turnovers that have made them not as potent, but they're still a top 10 scoring offense. Defense, of course, performed very well. Continued to hold up the standard that they had last year, and made it incredibly difficult, specifically on the ground, as they had a death row as far as running back statistics that teams have not been able to get really much yards on the ground versus them. And they faced some pretty good rushing attacks to this point, and they've done enough through the air as well to still play at a high level too. So we've got a little bit of turnover from that standpoint. But just real quick, how do you give your general thoughts as far as both sides of the ball, DG, before we kind of dive in position by position?
Yeah, I think offensively, so like you said, the penalties, the turnovers have kind of halted some drives or whatever like that. The one annoying thing has been the turnovers in plus territory. I don't mind you turning over the ball, because I know it's gonna happen. It's bound to happen at points in times. Like you're not gonna be perfect, but the penalties when you get in plus the turnovers and penalties when you get in plus territory just absolutely kill drives, and nothing pisses me off more than that. Just because you can't have that, especially when you're about to score or something like that, you turn the ball over, or you have a bad penalty that backs you up or something. So, feel like if they can clean that up, then and then the sky's the limit for this offense. As far as moving the ball, they've been able to do that in between the 20s. They've been great. I think Xavier Worthy has really helped out the bringing back that explosion in our offense this year, keeping defenses honest. I think it's left the middle of the field open, and I think it made them more efficient to run the ball as well. Kareem Hunt coming in mid-season, well, kind of mid-season-ish or whatever, and being able to get the workload that he's gotten has been a big revelation, I think, for them. Having a back that has the vision that he has and can be capable of falling for 3 or 4 yards, even when, the line doesn't do a great job of blocking up front at points in time. I think has really helped this team stay ahead of the sticks at points in times. And then, Patrick Mahomes being who he is in clutch moments and when you need him the most, when you need him to make a play. That's why I still feel like he's the best player in the league, just because when you need him the most, you can count on him. Put the ball in his hands and let him win the game for you, or let him make the big play for you. So that capability is still there, all in our offense. Defensively, man, I think they're think the defense has been better than they were last year. I know.
Crazy to say.
Yeah, which is wild to say because they were phenomenal last year, especially in the secondary. Having Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed, I think they were the best cornerback tandem at that point in time in the league.
Yeah, no
But
doubt
then
about it.
losing him, of course, you're probably susceptible to giving up a little bit more yards through the air this year. It felt like Jalen Watson was playing really well, for what he was able to put in until he got hurt. But I did not expect them to be, I think, probably their top 3 in the league in rushing defense at this point in time. Um, running backs come here and they go to hell. So yeah, Spags and Brendan Daly and Joe Cullen, all those guys on that side of the ball have really, I think, taken um, emphasis on really being able to stop the run, make teams one-dimensional, and earn the right to really pass rush. And I really think, even though the SAG numbers aren't high or anything like that, we've been one of the better defenses in pressure rate, things of that nature, and getting quarterbacks off their spot, stuff like that. So defensively, I think, like I said, I think they've been paid better than they were last year. I know it's going to pay dividends for them to be a good run stopping defense once we get to playoff times, especially when things get colder and people just start generally running the ball a lot more in the later months or whatever. You can't really feel like you go into the playoffs being a team, I think, that's bad against the run. So to see them have that kind of discipline at this point in time, the way that the line has been playing, filling gaps, and the linebackers been crashing down and filling holes and stuff like that. Drew Tranquil, Leo Chanel. I think Leo Chanel has been a pivotal part of this defense at this point in time. So yeah, both sides I think have been. I think the offense has been good. I think the defense has been great. Hopefully, the offense can catch up to the defense and start being great as well too. And I think it'll prove for a great formula.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as what they've been able to perform on both sides of the ball. Offense has been good, defense has been great, and I think that obviously they've added reinforcements on both sides to make sure that this team can continue to perform at an extremely high level. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what they're able to do in the second half of the season. But we will start on the offensive side of the ball, looking at what's kind of been put on tape as far as the first half of the season. And obviously, we're starting here with the quarterback position, the best quarterback in the National Football League, Patrick Mahomes, who hasn't necessarily performed up to his standard to this point in the season. And, I think there was a graphic specifically about some of the PFF grades, which, you take with a grain of salt, but specifically about first 3 quarters have not been great, even though the third quarter is better than the first 2. And the fourth quarter has been excellent at tops of the league. And this is a testament to what Patrick Mahomes can do, that even throughout the game in which maybe is not performing to his standards, he has still been able to win the game at the end of it, which is all that matters ultimately for you to be undefeated, of course. And obviously, this is a conversation that we'll get into more about losing wide receivers. Obviously, a little bit of issues as far as left tackle is concerned. And generally speaking, you're not going to get the best game plan out of every single offense, or I should say, out of the Andy Reid offense early on in the season, because that's not what they bring to the table as well. But I wanted to go ahead and bring it up for us to be able to look at specifically the turnovers, because that's really the major thing. They've been able to move the ball effectively, efficiently. The thing that's been harped upon as far as Patrick Mahomes to this point is the turnovers. And it's a conversation about which one are his fault, which ones are not his fault. And I think it's an interesting one. But before we get into it, DG, give me your thoughts as far as Patrick Mahomes in his start to the season.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been what you like to see or what you're normally used to seeing, from him. But like I said, I think at the same time, when they've needed a play from him or they needed him to be, Superman at points in times, he steps up and does that. And I think that's still what makes him the best player in the league. I'll say a lot of the turnovers that he's had, I think have just been kind of fluky. The tip passes at the line, nothing pisses me off with those kind of plays because I just think those are fluky, lucky plays, especially when defensive linemen are catching interceptions. You know, so I think a little bit of some of it can be out of your control. But there are points in times where Pat has made some decisions that you're kind of looking just like, why would you, go there? And I think there's times where he gets to the point where he's thinking maybe a little bit too much, trying to force a play a little bit too much, and we've seen him get into those kinds of moves before as well too. So um, as the season goes on, I think that kind of evens out because he kind of starts protecting the ball a lot more, especially as we get on to the later months and in the playoffs. He starts being a lot more decisive with his decisions as well. So I don't think it's something that's going to last throughout the whole season. I think last week actually against the Raiders was one of his better, cleaner games. Um, Outside of like I said, the fluky tipped interception at the line, I don't blame him for it at all, just because it happens. Like it's one of those things. Linemen got their hands up, and then somebody picks it off. It is what it is at that point. Like yeah,
Yeah, it
um,
just is.
yeah. So it's not much that I can be mad at for him about the especially the last. I think the last couple weeks he's played his better ball. Um, Gets the Saints. Um, the Niners game I think was sort of fluky with some of the interceptions. I blame him for probably one of those, and then
Mhm.
Raiders game, he I think it was probably one of his more cleaner games. So
Yeah,
I think it gets better as you go on, to as the season goes on, as he starts to see what teams' tendencies are as the season goes on, and I think it really helps him or whatever. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. I'm not hitting my panic button or anything right now. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think you've seen it actually get better over the course of the season as well. And so we can kind of run down it as far as the actual interceptions were concerned. And I agree with you. I think that
mm,
the Raiders game was actually his cleanest to this point in the season, of
mm,
which you've seen him put together, and be able to attack, which was, I mean, the Raiders defense is not great. And they were playing a lot of soft zone, which made it a little easier. But I don't think it's any coincidence that, hey, you got a competent wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins out there after missing some of your guys throughout the entirety of the season, and
mhm,
now you have the opportunity to get the job done as well.
yeah,
Let me see if I there you go. Okay, go ahead.
no,
But yeah,
you
so
good?
it's starting here. Obviously, the Ravens won.
Yeah.
It's, he's trying to come back to receive rights, and it's just he's get pressure on his face, and then he can lose it short.
Yeah, this one I'll say he has to kind of take the blame for.
Yeah,
I get the idea of what he was trying to do. I think it obviously there. I think he was trying to dirt it. Um, but you just if you're gonna do that, just dirt it. Like
dirty. Yeah,
don't leave it up to
don't.
where it can be caught or whatever. So that one I kind of have to blame him for. I think this is the one that you really have to put the blame on him because I think it's just a bad read by him. And
Yeah, he's
even as great as he is, he makes mistakes. Like he's gonna mess up at points in time. So
Yeah, and he's obviously he's trying to move the linebacker here so that he can open up that window over the middle of the
mhm,
field to get that throw in there. And the linebacker does a good job of just not moving. He's
mhm,
just like, nope, Travis Kelce is right here. I'm not leaving 87.
yeah,
And he's able to pick it off as well. So I can't that those first two I certainly would say I put more so on him. And he's got to do a better job at not getting caught in those situations, throwing the ball to middle linebackers over the middle of the field. But
yeah,
and it was crazy that the throw, or I should say the decision was kind of almost as bad, given the fact that he almost overran it trying to intercept it as well. So that tells
yeah.
you how it's just something you shouldn't do in that situation.
Yeah, the Bengals do a really good job, and I have to give them their credit. They do a really good job of making him be patient for predominantly throughout the game. Um, well, I would say Lua and Arumo, I think you know, wouldn't say has his number, but at the same time has a game plan that he loves to stick to. And I think it really forces Pat and Andy to have to really be patient and take what's in front of them. And I think even for Mahomes, sometimes that gets a little bit boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Lewis does a good job at that. And even though that they were able to take advantage of it a little bit as the game wore on, they make it very difficult on you.
Yeah.
To especially, it's just one of those things where certain teams just have your number. And I think the Chiefs, when they see the Raiders defense is kind of the opposite, they're like, "Oh, we're going to feast today." And we've seen that in the past. But this Bengals defense, even when it's a little bit underpowered, they find ways to be able to attack and make it incredibly difficult
Yeah.
on teams on a consistent basis, but specifically the Chiefs because of the mismatch here. This one, it's kind of half bad decision, half bad throw. You probably
Have
should
great
not be.
play.
Yeah, and then, right, and a third of a great like it Cam Taylor great excellent interception here with one hand. Like it's insane. Like this should be an incompletion, but he turns
Uh-huh.
into an interception because
Oh,
he
yeah.
just makes a spectacular play.
Yeah.
But he also, Xavier Worthy running down the boundary, and we'll talk about Xavier Worthy. That's not
Mhm.
necessarily the situation you want to put him in and expect him to go make a
Yeah.
play there. But that's an incredible interception for sure.
Dog.
So it's more about the decision making that leading you there than necessarily the throw, I guess. But Jesus.
Yeah. The like I said, this is one of those plays again. Like I get the idea of what we're trying to do at this point because we had already kind of beat them on this play earlier in the game with Rasheed. Um, but yeah, this is just one of those situations where you kind of have to know who you're throwing to at this
Mhm.
point. Xavier, we all know, is not a guy who's a contested 50-50 ball kind of guy or anything. And I I don't think Pat was trying to do that, but I just think the decision of it is like you can't put that ball in that situation. And then Cam Taylor Britt just makes
Great
probably
play.
arguably one of the plays of the year as far
Yeah,
as of what we've
100%.
seen from this season. So yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to him.
Uh, Yeah, for sure. This one to me was the most frustrating, I think, of all the interceptions that we've had so far this year. From him specifically standpoint, it's both a late throw, it's a which is a little bit of decision making, and then also it's the wrong throw. He kind of also lofts it up and allows Justin Simmons, who loves to pick off Patrick Mahomes, to go over and get him. And so it's like I understand the idea. Like if you fire this into the window and you have an opportunity to go ahead and get this in there quickly, then I
Mhm.
think that there's a chance that this ends up being completed. Patrick Mahomes just isn't able to do that here, as he's both late and obviously it kind of lofts it. And there's obviously a guy blitzing, but you expect Patrick Mahomes to still be able to perform under those circumstances, even so.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that that's on him as well.
I would say it's for me it's a mixture. Just because I think some of it has to do with miscommunication of especially with Carson still kind of not knowing where to pick, where the
Mhm.
blitz is coming from. I do think that has a little bit to do with it because it makes him kind of rush his throw a little and have to loft it a little bit. Um, but then again, like you said, it's one of those things as you're the leader of this team, you're the guy, you have to at this point, especially being a veteran, how long Pat has been in the league for a younger quarterback, you may give him a pass on this just because, you know, you say, oh, he doesn't, hasn't learned the protections or things of that nature. But Pat has to know better at this point in time that you can't just loft it up there. And I'd rather you oversell it to Noah, trying to get it to the back of the end zone or something like that than just putting it up there in harm's way, especially against Justice Simmons.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, so and I agree with you, and that's something we'll get into as far as the running backs is concerned, is making sure you're using these guys in the right situations. Unfortunately, they
Mhm.
had to lean on Carson Steele because this was or they had Kareem Hunt by that Falcon team. I think they had Kareem
No,
Hunt, right? They did not.
no,
Okay, yeah. So this is after you lost Isaiah Pacheco and you're leaning on Kareem Hunt, or Carson Steele to do a little bit more than probably he's ready to do as an undrafted free agent rookie. And so it's one of those situations where you got to put some Isaiah P. Ryan out there more so. And obviously now that you have Kareem Hunt, Kareem has better vision and understanding of who he needs to go ahead and pick up in pass protection. But that's just one of those unfortunate things where you're trying to, have a guy that's thrust into a position and playing more than he probably should have. And so this one, obviously trying to get Kelce on that corner route early in the game. And this is a tough one. The
That
easy
would
Sweet Prince
full
missed the number
blame,
4.
all out blame. This is your fault. Like the throw was rushed. I don't know where I don't know why you're even throwing this ball to him. Like there's 3 people in the vicinity of where Trav is, and then you hurt your number 1 receiver. Like it's just all bad. Like it was all him. He has to take the full blame for that one.
It's bad across the board, man. And it just it's he throws it over the top, and then but that window just isn't there. I mean, it just isn't. It's incredibly difficult to get it in there. So it's one of those things where you got a predefined read and you're going to throw it, and you decide to do it regardless. And obviously, what ends up happening afterwards ends up, being a catastrophe on top of it, which is highly unfortunate. Just backbreaking, to be honest with you. So, rest easy, our Sweet Prince, Mr. Number 4, Rasheed Rice. Get back soon, man. Can't wait to see you back on the field.
Please come back healthy.
Please, just praying that you come back healthy. So that's 5. I think that all 5 of those, in my opinion, are probably pretty, but majority blame on Patrick Mahomes, even though we know that Cam Taylor-Britt was a great play and Carson Steele missed it. But that's 5. This one, you kind of just got to put on Juju. Ball is right in the frame. He's got to be able to bring that in. And shout out Colin Saunders. Excellent.
Yeah. Shout out to him. But this is just, oh God, it's such a. This is one of those turnovers that really piss you off because it shouldn't have happened at all. And I know the next day Andy was just shaking his head at this one just because this is such a
and the team is rolling. You're down on the goal line. You're about to extend your lead, and then that happens. It's just like it's just the worst possible time. But Mahomes put this on the money. Juju just got to come down with it. That's just the reality of the situation.
Hit your hand. You got to make the play.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate it happened, but we did get obviously a lot of memes that came out of it because Colin Saunders was the one that ended up running it back as well.
It couldn't have been like anybody else. Tyrann Mathieu, Alontae Taylor.
Obviously, we really didn't play. I prefer if it was Colin Saunders. At least we got a laugh out of it because otherwise it's just tragic.
Yeah, watching Binky have to run down the sideline was just, come on,
dog. Just completely unfortunate. But that's the first one of the the interceptions that I think just isn't on Patrick Mahomes there. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do there. They got the look that they were looking for. Juju got inside leverage, so it wasn't. You can't be like, oh well, you should have known to pull it back or something like the Russell Wilson thing. No, it's exactly what you should have done in that circumstance. See if we can get it to reload as well. But no, at least you could laugh to keep from crying because Colin Saunders is up running it back 40 yards, and nobody.
He was moving too. He was scooting. I was like, he was moving.
Folks was dropping like flies out there. We know Patrick Mahomes wasn't tackling nobody else.
Right. I think the funniest part of the play was I think Xavier Worthy tried to strip the ball or something like that, and he did completely whiffed and missed. And it was
he was like, no, we're not doing this. You're not going to end up trying to tackle me.
Binky, man. Like out of all the players, I could have took anybody else, but Binky, Sir Binky.
Colin was like, man, I got 100 pounds on you.
Right.
Not go ahead
and at that point, you become a fan now. You're like, let go. You're like, wait, this is the opposing team. Go. Yeah. Big man touchdowns are always fun to watch, man.
Extremely fun. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. We'll see. This would be kind of slow to be able to pull up the other ones as well. Though, I mean, we know, obviously, we kind of talked about the last one, specifically versus Vegas. Didn't think that it was necessarily his fault because, again, just passes tipped and there's nothing else you can really do about it at that point. I'm trying to remember exactly the 49ers one because that was when he was targeting Jody Ford.
He threw 2 that game.
Yeah. And the one where Worthy falls down, it's kind of feet get tangled up. You're expecting him. He has outside leverage, and you expect him to separate and run away from him. So that's why you throw it. And you could probably try and make an argument if the throw is short, et cetera. I personally wouldn't necessarily look at it that way. I think it's just the wide receiver has to stay up in that circumstance. And so I wouldn't
Yeah.
put that on him either.
That one, yeah, I probably blame more on timing. It's because it's kind of that's one of those routes that is more of their timing kind of routes. Like Xavier falling, slipping and falling, and then I also have to kind of credit to Lenore who made the interception. He's a veteran guy. He just continued to kind of run the route, and fortunately enough, if he's not there and Xavier never falls, Xavier's making that catch and probably picking up some yak yards after that. But Lenore runs the route as well. Makes the play, and it is what it is. So that one I wouldn't necessarily put on Pat. Just more closer to just the timing of the route.
Yeah. And then I was pulling up because I was interested as far as the one to Fortune as well. I mean, it's one of those things where you're targeting a guy at the line of scrimmage gets his hands up, so it's like you could easily bat it down and it's not an interception. So I mean, I think that ultimately what you land on is there's been some uneven play, certainly, and there's been some throws missed that didn't end up in interceptions, but it should not be as bad as far as the final numbers are concerned. And obviously, the touchdowns could be much higher if they haven't been running the ball as effectively as they have been, especially in the red zone too. So that's kind of the idea as far as Patrick Mahomes. I think that you're going to continue to see them play at a much higher level, though, now that DeAndre Hopkins is getting involved, and they continue to play very well as far as the offensive line is concerned. So moving on to the running back position. Obviously, Isaiah Pacheco started out the season running very well. Unfortunately, get hurt, and obviously there was a little bit of unevenness to try and replace him. And then you bring in Kareem Hunt, who I think has done an admirable job at being able to get them exactly what's been blocked up. Maybe not more, but done exactly what they needed to. I think Carson Steele has been good as far as short yards is concerned when he can completely wrap it up. The fumbles early in the season were unacceptable, but he's done a solid job of mitigating, and he's been fine in special teams. And the other guy that I do want to shout out, because I think he's been a little bit underrated as far as the start to the season, it's Mahomes INTs. I think he's been very good as far as being able to handle what's been thrown at him versus, being able to be that third down kind of back type of aspect of it. And I think we've seen, maybe a little bit of shades of Jet McKinnon. Specifically in this game versus the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is the one that I kind of wanted to point out here. We've seen this with the Jet McKinnon kind of flip to Mr. Or I should say versus the Denver Broncos. But this is kind of the vibes that I got as far as this specific play where Patrick Mahomes kind of has to, just give it out. Oh no, this is the other one. My bad. I felt like this was. No, it's still yeah. I mean, it's a check down and gets the job done.
Yeah.
I felt like this wasn't it. Oh, let's see if we can pull it up real quick. But you know what I'm talking about. But while I pull it up, go ahead and give your thoughts as far as the running back room is concerned this year so far.
Yeah, feel like I honestly feel like the running back room has been a little bit better than I kind of even expected it to be. Especially with the addition of Kareem Hunt coming in. I knew. We all kind of had a feeling when Samaje Perine got released from the Broncos that it'd be a good role and fit for him to come here to play with us, chase a ring as well. But yeah, I feel like he's kind of replaced that role that Jet McKinnon kind of left, that receiving third down situational back. There are points in times where I would like to see him get maybe a little bit more touches just because I feel like, he's been in this league a long time and knows his job. But it could also be one of those things where he's still trying to kind of get comfortable with the playbook as well too. And Andy and them are not trying to throw too much at him at one time. Getting Kareem back, I felt like Kareem was here 2-3 years or whatever. So he already kind of knowing the system, knowing the terminology, I think is what ultimately shot him up to being your RB1. And I don't have no problems or issues with that because he's been phenomenal since he's been back and been able to handle the workload that they have given him. I think Andy trusts him to have the ball in his hands a lot more with the carries that he's been getting. I think he's close to averaging almost 19, 20 carries a game or so at this point in time. So, yeah, I feel like getting him back, especially after losing Pop, for a little bit has really alleviated the stress that they were gonna have to try to put on an undrafted guy in Carson Steele. Um, I feel like Carson fits a necessary role that they didn't have last year, which is a short yardage type back. But I feel like that's the role he should probably stay in. Can he be serviceable for a game or two for you? For if somebody was to go down, I think he can do that. But to be a full-fledged starter, I think after the Pacheco injury, I think they kind of realized that he wasn't really ready for that. Especially with protecting the ball and things of that nature, kind of give him a little bit of leeway just because of him being a rookie, and you're going to go through some growing pains at points and times with him or whatever. But I feel like he's played his role decently well, especially these last couple weeks and the carries that he has gotten, and spelling Kareem at points and times. So love the running back room. I love what they're doing. Hopefully everybody stays healthy, especially Kareem at this point. Definitely it's going to help a lot when Isaiah does come back, and they kind of have that 1-2 punch, him and Kareem. Um, but I feel like Kareem is the running back that fits this offense the best. Just what he can be able to do vision wise, cutback wise. May not have the same explosion he used to have when he first got here, but I feel like he runs behind this line a little bit better than Isaiah Pacheco does at this point in time.
I still have a favor towards kind of the explosive nature that Pacheco does bring to the table a little bit better as far as breaking tackles and getting more. I think that you saw kind of early in the season that there was a maturity as far as his running style of being able to hit those holes and understanding where exactly the cutback lanes were. And it's unfortunate that obviously he got hurt, so you didn't get to see a full sample size of it. But I think when he comes back, you continue to see that maturity, and as long as he's healthy, I think you'll see that explosive comes back. But I think this room is now very well rounded, and if Kareem Hunt is that guy that's spelling you and being able to get you whatever yardage that you're blocking up on a consistent basis because of how well this offensive line is performing as far as being a run blocking line, I'm happy with it. I think that that's exactly where it should be landed, with Pacheco being the lead guy and Kareem Hunt really being that spell guy. And then you have Samaje Perine as a third down back. And this was what I was referring to as far as kind of a shades of Jet McKinnon, where early on in that first drive of the game, they're coming over here. Mahomes has a scramble, and he draws 3 Raiders defenders and just flip it over the top to Perine for a nice 20-yard gain, and then get them down inside the 5. And that's exactly what a third down back is supposed to be, a guy that's able to be available for those checkdowns, can give and know his assignment as far as pass protection is concerned, and then be able to bring that value as well if he's asked upon as far as receiving is concerned. So I think that's a general wrap up as far as the running backs are concerned. Obviously, there's a lot as far as the wide receivers. You started off this depth chart that was supposed to be headlined by Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown. Both those guys end up going down over the course of the season. We know how excellent of a season Rashee Rice was having to this point. He was top 5 in receiving yards. He was the feature pass catcher in this offense. I think that remains to be seen. We will see if Hollywood Brown ends up coming back. Obviously, that would be later on in the season. I think, Justin Watson has been kind of what you signed him to be, depth wide receiver and available occasionally to get things done when asked upon. Mecole Hardman had this, 49ers killer game, which is cool. He's learned how to be selective in his punt returns, which I think is also very nice to see. We know DeAndre Hopkins is a new addition. Obviously, we saw our first taste of him versus the Raiders. We expect to see more of him versus the Buccaneers. I'm excited for what that's going to look like moving forward. Sky Moore has had no progression as far as this year is concerned. He obviously went on IR. I don't expect that you're going to hear from him for the rest of the year if things go probably the way the Chiefs would prefer if they go. So that kind of just leaves one guy, and that's Xavier Worthy. That's your boy from Texas. I think that there has been some misrepresentation as far as what he's brought to the table to this point. Obviously, they've asked him maybe to do a little bit more than they were expecting to, given the injuries that they sustained at the position. I think Xavier's done a really good job to this point. He's understood how to create that separation deep. He's understood how to stretch the field on a consistent basis. He's also giving you a little bit of underneath stuff as well, whether it's mesh routes, the little, kind of dig return that he had early on in the Raiders game as well. There's still aspects of his verticality as far as kind of dig routes, or I should say stop routes, comeback routes that aren't necessarily there yet. And I don't think maybe are always going to be there. But being able to use the speed to create the space underneath for everything else this offense has done has been hidden value that I don't think anything has really been captured as far as the box score is concerned. So I've been good with what Xavier Worthy has brought to the table. Maybe he hasn't necessarily overperformed, but I think that he's been exactly what you've needed as far as this offense has asked him to be, or drafted him to be, I should say, to start out the season so far. So give me your thoughts as far as Xavier Worthy is concerned as his review at midseason.
Yeah, last year this team lacked. I mean, well, they didn't lack, but they just had guys that didn't do the job as well as as I think as Xavier's been able to do it this year. Obviously you brought in a guy like MVS last year to kind of be a field stretcher, make open up things underneath for you. And last year, I just think he didn't do a great as a job of that. Especially when the ball was thrown his way. There were points and times where made significant drops and things of that nature. So I think Xavier has been able to come in and be a serviceable piece to provide with that role, being able to stretch the field. But also, I've seen there are points in times where you see growth in his route running ability and his ability to separate. Just like in the Raiders game, I think there was a crucial third down that he kind of ran that what you would call a pivot route, kind of where he kind of, to me, in my opinion, I call it lullabying. He lullabied the corner into having to kind of sit on his feet for a little bit or whatever, not knowing if he was either going to try to run foul. And then the corner has like I don't know who the corner was, but he had like a 10-yard cushion on him. And that just lets you know how afraid people are of Xavier Worthy's speed. But he kind of gets out of his break. He hits him with a little bit of hesitation, and he's pretty much wide open for an easy throw to Pat, and picks up a 3rd and 4 for us, on a crucial down. So I think you've seen the growth in his route running ability, even when he is getting vertical down the field. The touchdown to the Chargers in the Chargers game, where you kind of see him put that little hesitation and stem the guy at the top of the route and get vertical and get down the field. Then to have the presence of mind to track the ball as well, and make the catch and force a penalty on the play as well too, just with his speed alone. So yeah, I think that Xavier has done his job well since he's been here. Have there been some growing pains and things of that nature where you like for him to catch some passes that help pad out a little bit more or whatever? But at points in times, I think you have to know that that's just not his game. It's contested catches and things of that nature is something that he just never asked to do at Texas or anything like that. But all the things that I seen him when he was at Texas and people doubted him about, are showing on the field if people really watch and look at what he's actually doing. A lot of people think he's just a short, fast, guy that doesn't have a lot of, meat on his bones and stuff like that. But you really see that when you put on the film that he actually can run routes and he can do them really effective. So love what Xavier Worthy's done. Hopefully his role continues to grow. I do think that there are points and times where Andy and them are not trying to put too much on him as well too, just with him still trying to get acclimated to the offense and being a rookie. But I think they have had to try to lean on him a little bit more, especially with some of the injuries. And I think he stepped up and really helped out in that role.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I've seen a little bit of route nuance continue to be added to his game, and that's been exciting to see. So I personally, I don't have any complaints of what he's been able to do this point in the season. You love to see some additions, but I think that this isn't something that you expect to see ready-made day one. But based on what we're coming off of, whether it's the Richie James or Kadarius Tonys of the world or Scott Moore's, you've seen an upgrade as far as that position has been concerned, and even MVS of being able to stretch the field on a consistent basis and really be a threat against team safeties, and that's opened up things in the immediate portions of the field, things for the run game to be able to attack, which has been nice. So tight ends, a little bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, Travis Kelce is the headliner here. Slow start to begin with, but I think that was more about emphasizing Rashee Rice and having the ability to see the growth in his game and not necessarily needing to rely upon what Travis Kelce brought to the table. Probably lost a little bit of a half step off of where he was from last year's regular season, but still performing at a high level when asked to. And obviously, we saw what he was able to do versus the Raiders, put up 90 yards as well. It's one of the things that's hard to judge because you know that the regular season is just making sure that he gets through it to the playoffs as well, in which he can make those impacts. And obviously, DeAndre Hopkins coming in is going to take a little bit off of this plate too. So it's kind of like he's performed fine as far as I'm concerned. Noah Gray, I think, is overperformed. Obviously came in, got the extension. He's been really key as far as a pass catcher is concerned. If you look at the full season, probably been the second most important pass catcher that we've had because of how consistent he's been. Obviously saved Xavier Worthy on one of those third down conversions versus the Raiders. I've been encouraged by what I've seen from him. I understand why they want to keep him around. It's been massive for our heavy personnel sets. And honestly, he's going to be asked to be even bigger for our heavy personnel sets because unfortunately, we did get the news that Jared Wiley did end up tearing his ACL in practice on Friday, which is a shame. Yeah. He's a guy that a lot of people were excited about both coming out of the draft and then also during training camp for his athletic ability. Hasn't necessarily manifested to this point as far as receiving, but we know tight ends sometimes take a little bit of time to gain traction as well. It's been fine as far as heavy personnel sets. They also lost Jody Fortson, torn ACL and meniscus versus the Raiders as well. So now they're down two of what was a very important tight end room that they put out there as far as heavy personnel sets because of the issues that they've had in the wide receiver room and people getting hurt there. So they've had a lot of attrition as far as the weapons are concerned on this football team to this point. And so that means that they're going to be calling up Peyton Hendershot for this game on Monday. You expect him probably to be on the active roster. He's the guy that they traded from the Cowboys, but we didn't see anything about. I don't expect him to catch passes, but Jared Wiley didn't really, and Jody Fortson didn't necessarily either. He's kind of just going to be the third guy that's in there on heavy personnel sets to try and move people out of the way, and we'll see exactly what he can do outside of that. So Kelce's been fine. Noah Gray, I think, has overperformed. How are your thoughts as far as the tight end room this year?
Yeah, I think Trav, to me, in my opinion, I agree. It was more of an emphasis that, they were going to give Rashee Rice the ball a lot more. Kind of slow play things with Trav. Use him a little bit more, I feel like, in the beginning of the season as a decoy to kind of draw some attention, especially away from Rashee. I think that's why Rashee was having so much success early on. But then, when you need him, when you call on him, he's there. I never lost any kind of faith in 87. I know what he can do. I know what he's capable of. Yes, he's older. And yes, there are some parts of his game that, probably aren't there with the age as well, too. But I still feel like, he's probably one of the more cerebral guys in this league that seen everything, that knows everything, that, seen how every team is played, against him and things of that nature. So, he's our safety net. He's always been that. And I feel like he continues to do that job very well. And then you see now that they've brought in an actual legitimate receiver and a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, it opens up a little bit more things for Trav, especially underneath, to work and do his thing. So Noah Gray has been phenomenal. Clearly see now why they decided to offer him that extension. I kind of think they got a little bit of a steal on it as well, too. But that could be Noah just wanting to stick around here and be involved in what's going on here. Why leave at this point when you can be successful here as well, too. I do think that Andy and them do need to probably consider drawing up some more plays for him to get him the ball. Still haven't seen him drop a pass, and I don't know how long. I'm gonna knock on wood because I feel like it might come soon or whatever. But yeah, he's been utterly reliable. especially out of some of those heavier personnels. Um, especially when Pat gets to where he's got to scramble and kind of make a play. Um, Noah's been right there. The tip pass is right into his hands off Xavier Worthy. Just right place, right time, man. And Noah's been able to do that um, since he's really been here. So glad to still have him here. He's earning every bit of that money from that extension that they paid him. So happy for him. Happy to see him get more touches. The losses of Fortson and Jared Wiley. Um, I think the loss of Fortson is a little bit more pivotal than losing Jared Wiley. Although Jared Wiley to me was playing, I feel like decently well. Didn't get a lot of reps as far as with them throwing to him, but doing his job as far as blocking and things of that nature and learning the offense and kind of taking under the wing of Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. I feel like he was learning a lot. So losing him sucks. Is unfortunate injury to him that happened in practice, but young player. I think he'll be back and be able to bounce back really well. Still be able to learn from some of the greater minds in that room at this point in time. Losing Fortson, I feel like kind of takes a little bit of one of those pieces in your offense that you can kind of put him in different positions. Jody was kind of one of those guys that could play as a receiver, but also play as a tight end. And I feel like in those heavier personnels, it kind of helps in those situations. But unfortunate what happened to him. Hopefully, Peyton Hendershot can step up and kind of play a little bit of that role and be serviceable for them as well. But I don't have the same expectations, position wise from him as I do Jody Fortson. So sucks to lose Fortson, but training has to keep moving, has to keep going on. Guys got to step up and do their jobs.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you lose guys that you have seen play well in the system, and now it's like, okay, well, now we're bringing in people outside that don't know it as well. It's like you're losing a little bit, unfortunately, from that aspect. So, this is going to be more on Kelce, more on Gray to kind of carry the load, and hopefully with DeAndre Hopkins, your wide receiver room feels a little bit more solidified, that you don't necessarily have to lean on the heavy personnel as such. I think that they maybe were doing that at a default at a certain point, and maybe they can get away from it, but it is unfortunate that you just don't have that depth now in that tight end room that you did with just two devastating injuries back to back, really in the span of a week. So that's it as far as the weapons are concerned. Now we can get into the big uglies in the trenches. I think it's important to point out how well specifically Juwan Taylor has performed, and I want to start there, and then we can move into the other side of it. But Juwan Taylor, he's top 20 as far as pass block win rate is concerned. I think he's been good as far as the run game as well. Obviously, you saw it had a little bit of unevenness as far as penalties in one game, but it's really just that one game in which things have kind of reared its ugly head. I think he's performed as one of the best right tackles in the National Football League. It's tough. I think probably relative to expectations, you would say that you wanted him to perform well going into the season, but one of the best right tackles is probably a little bit overperformance, so I'll give him that credit as well. But quick thoughts on Juwan Taylor, and we'll talk about the other side.
Yeah, I think he's been great. I know he gets a lot of flack just because of the penalties and things of that nature, but I think that over the offseason, you clearly seen that there's been an emphasis of him cleaning that up. And then I think a lot of it had to do with him learning how to play with Pat, and knowing, this is why I tell people to kind of, you always have to go back to schematics and look at what's actually going on out there. The chemistry of you playing with a quarterback that may, tend to step up a little bit more in the pocket or drift a little bit more in the pocket, kind of has to make you alter your game a little bit. And I think that was something, and especially in Juwan's first year, that he had to kind of adjust to. And I think he's been able to clean that up a lot more. But man, last week he was phenomenal. Going up against one of the best pass rushers, a guy you feel like is top 5 in the league, and Max Crosby. I don't remember hearing Max Crosby's name at all last week. So for him to go out there and put up some performance up that against one of the better pass rushers in this league, just goes to show you the growth that he's had. And I think he's earning every bit of dollar that he can from that contract that they paid him. Also willing to help the team out a little bit with restructuring and bringing down his number a little bit as well too. So that proves that he's a team guy. He's here to win, and just continue to keep doing what he's doing. I think he's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. And the stat is, Jawan Taylor and Max Crosby were lined up for 25 one-on-one matchups and 28 pass blocking matchups in general. And Crosby did not get a single pressure. That's that's just the reality of the situation. Whenever you could shut down one side and force that guy to go to the other side and give help accordingly when you need to. It's a tackle that's performing at the height of the game, and it's really for what this offense can operate on. As we'll talk about the entirety of the offensive line as well. The other conversation, of course, is the Kingsley Suamataia versus the Wanya Morris. I've kind of made it clear. I don't think that Kingsley should have been benched when he was. I think the Trey Hendrickson conversation was a little bit of an overreaction and a bad plan, more so than just him performing so far below what you expected from him. I understand if they want to go with Wanya Morris for the rest of the season. It sounds like they're going to because of his experience here, because they feel comfortable with running the offense, and that's fine. It's not like a crazy difference between the two of them. I think they're performing at a relatively similar level. It's really just about the upside of what Kingsley can provide you for future years. But for right now, it seems like they are going to stick with Wanya Morris, who's performed like a below average left tackle and continues to need help versus elite matchups, as Kingsley would as well. And that's just kind of how it goes. But again, kind of getting back to the entirety of the offensive line, when you've got three guys in the interior playing at elite level, the right tackle's playing like one of the best in the game at his position, you can afford to have a below average left tackle as well. And when your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes too. So give me your thoughts on left tackle position.
Yeah, I think they panicked a little bit too soon, especially after the Bengals game. You're facing an all-pro pass rusher in Trey Hendrickson, who had 17 and a half sacks for a reason last year, and pretty much, dominated that game by himself. So I think it was a little bit of an overreaction, but it's kind of hard to say because I still kind of understand why they did it, why they would make the move. Based off of the experience that YA kind of has had, I felt like they felt a little safer with putting YA out there, especially going into the matchup that they had the next week. I think it was the Falcons after that, who've been one of the worst teams as far as getting to the quarterback this year. They haven't been able to really generate a pass rush at all. So I think they felt a little bit more comfortable with giving Kingsley, probably what they probably thought at that time, maybe the week off, allow him to kind of get his mental right. Because, after getting beat like that in the game and then hearing all the criticism afterwards could be a little bit tough on a rookie, going into the next week. I think, unfortunately, YA played decently well in that Falcons game, which, wasn't a vaunted matchup just because, like I said, the Falcons haven't been really that great at getting to the quarterback. And I think that's kind of the reason why he's been, as the weeks go on, he's had a okay performance here, below average performance here, but it hasn't been disastrous. Last week, I do feel like was getting on the verge of disaster, for Wanya Morris. When you're letting guys like Tyree Wilson, who's not good. Not a good player. But when you're letting guys like him get pressures on you and get around you, it does start to make you kind of wonder, should they kind of go back to Kingsley? I do think Kingsley would be a little bit better in matchups where they do see speed rushers, just because I do think he has the ability to recover faster than YA does. I think athletically, Kingsley's athleticism shines sometimes, especially in some of his reps. You can clearly see that he's just able to do a little bit more with his feet than YA does. I feel like YA kind of has club feet at points in times, where his feet kind of get stuck in
In the
the
mud, yeah,
grass.
concrete,
Yeah,
concrete.
and it's not really successful when you're facing speed rushers. I kind of feel like YA is the equivalent to what we saw from kind of Orlando Brown when he was here. You know, there are points in times just athletically he's just outmatched. So if it was me and I was making the decision, I probably would go back to Kingsley just because I think that you just have to live through some of the growing pains and allow him to get some of the reps. But I do think there were a lot of reps, especially early on in the year, where he was able to get beat but still recover at points and give Pat enough time to dissect what was going on down the field. So um, I think it probably will take maybe another disastrous game for them to probably consider going back to Kingsley at some point in time. But as long as Wyatt continues to play serviceably, I don't see Kingsley coming back into the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they're just going to stick with the veteran for right now.
Mhm.
Deal with some of those issues as far as stopping your feet, get a little bit more of the power than the athleticism that Kingsley brings to the table and say we're going to roll with it. And look, it's worked out to this point. The offensive line in general has performed very well. And so I can't be too mad at it. Speaking of which, the interior of the offensive line, and look, I don't think there's much else to be said other than this is just one of the best. This is the best interior offensive line that you can see as far as a starting trio in the National Football League. Creed and
Mhm.
Joe were both top 5 as far as pass block win rate at long should say amongst all positions in the interior of the offensive line. Trey Smith, again, continued to be that road grader, one of the best as far as run blocking grades as well. I'm not run blocking grades, but run block win rate specifically measured by ESPN2. So, they've just been excellent. They just have been. There's not much else to be said other than that. And Trey Smith is still, I think, top 25 as far as PFS pressure metrics are concerned too. So, all three have been elite. We'll have a conversation about Trey Smith and his money situation after the season. But for right now, I'm enjoying seeing this elite trio after Joe Tooney's come back from that pec injury from last season and played at the level that you expect. So anything you want to say as far as the interior offensive line before we flip to the defense side of the ball?
I was kind of against paying Trey Smith. Oh, I might be for
Might be for it.
yeah. At first, and it wasn't that I didn't think Trey Smith deserved the money or anything. I just thought maybe, you also have to kind of think about how to handle, your financials and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
could you maybe find somebody in the draft, coming up to replace him, or maybe they've already found that guy last year in the draft that they thought that they could replace him with. But then you see some of the things that Trey Smith does for you, especially like in the run game, the physicality that he plays with. I do think that this year he's become a lot better pass blocker than he was previously. I think there are some points in times where last year he did struggle a little bit against some of the rushers that he faced, but this year, man, he's been a dog this year. So I don't, whatever number they got in mind to throw at him at this point in time, I don't mind them throwing that number. I think your most pivotal part is to protect, your franchise in 15 and keep him upright and keep him going. As long as he's healthy and able to go out there and play on the field, you got chances to win championships. So, yeah, I was definitely more on the side of not paying Trey Smith, and now I'm more on the side of you gotta pay Trey Smith at this point. So, but yeah, the interior line has been great. Happy for Creed Humphrey. He deserved it, man. To be the highest paid center in the league. He's the best center in the league at this point in time. There's nobody else. Jason Kelce is gone, so there's nobody else I could put over him at this point. So, and then Joe Tooney's an All Pro.
Yeah. I'm not mad at it at all. So, we can flip over obviously to the defensive side of the ball and kind of talk about the interior of the defensive line. Chris Jones has been every bit of the best defensive tackle in the National Football League. I know Dexter Lawrence still continues to do incredibly unique things from a nose tackle position. but no one's doing it better than Chris Jones. The double team rate is through the roof. His ability to be disruptive, even despite that, he's also playing the run even better than he probably has at any point in his career. Shout out to getting your money and becoming an even better player and not having to chase sacks all the time. And the attention that he brings to the table then opens things up for guys like Tershawn Wharton, who I think has had a really great start to the season, been a very nice surprise in that interior of the defensive line, both from the run and pass. We've seen him be able to be effective from pass rusher, but he's been stronger at the point of attack versus the run and being more of a disruptive force, which I've been really encouraged to see as well. His ability to play more snaps, I think, has been really great for this entire rotation because their ability now to have Mike Pennell be just an early down guy and really selective with his usage, and Derek Nottie, both of those guys look fresher when they're asked to play. They're more effective versus the run when they're asked to do so, and they can push the pocket occasionally. But most importantly, they do their jobs at a high level. And now Tershawn Wharton and Chris Jones being that combination to be the starting, duo, especially on pass rushing downs, has been incredibly effective. So give me your thoughts as far as the interior defensive line is concerned to start out this year.
Yeah, I think it's agreeing with what you said. Chris Jones has been absolutely phenomenal. It does feel a lot better that he doesn't have to chase sacks this year because he has been a lot better in the run defense, and I feel like that's what's made this run defense really elite this year. But I mean, he just does so much for this defensive point. He's the most important part of that defense, the heart and soul. There's so many things that they rely upon him to do. Have seen him be on the edge a little bit more than we're probably used to seeing in previous years. And I think last year was the reason why he kind of proved, especially coming back after, the whole training camp debacle thing or whatever. And then, he came back in phenomenal shape and was ready to play that first game that he got in and really proved that he could, handle. I think he got a lot better playing on the edge as well, especially from a pass rush perspective. But would love to see him back in the interior a lot more, and I think that the addition of Josh Uche will help with that as well, not having to be so reliant on putting him on the edge to generate, a pass rush. But the double team rate has been crazy. I don't think there's been a snap where he hasn't been, especially from the interior sector, where he hasn't been double teamed. I think you have to double team because I don't think there's a center or a guard in this league that can block him one-on-one. So Chris Jones has been great. Tershawn Wharton has been phenomenal as well too. Like you said, real decent surprise, especially him battling back from the injuries that he's battled back from. But he's playing the run phenomenally well. Something that you really don't ask him to do in this defense. You really mainly just ask him to, get after the pass rusher. Get after the quarterback as well, be a pass rusher. But he's played well and phenomenal as, holding his gaps and knowing his assignments and things of that nature. George Karlaftis and even, man, from George Karlaftis down to even to Malik Herring to, FAU, all those guys up front, especially on that defensive line. Derek Nandi as well, I think has had a silently good year. I think a lot of people don't talk about him, but he's been one of the big reasons why this Russian defense has been playing really well. And then Mike Pennell, who I feel like is a space eater, just gets in people's way, especially when people are trying to run the ball against us. He's been phenomenal to have back for a full year as well too. So that interior of that line has played probably as a group, as a unit, has probably played the best in the league up until this point, and I think it's the reason why this defense has been extremely successful this
year. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into it a little bit more, but this is, in my opinion, person for person, just the best front seven in the National Football League with the new addition of Joshua Uche, who we're talking about kind of here in a second. Then also Charles Omenihu hopefully coming back to add to the edge room as well. But no, this interior defensive lines have performed extremely well, and they've set up in my opinion, the linebackers really for high levels of success as well. And Chris Jones has set up the edges for success too, as we talk about kind of the defensive ends so far. I think that to start out this year, I think both starting defensive ends, obviously Mike Dan's been in and out with the pec injury. He's been out recently. But I think both of those guys have kind of performed below their standard. They've been fine versus the run, but haven't really given you the pass rush that you expect. I think George Karlaftis has brought on a little bit more and come on as the season has gone along. We obviously saw him with the really good sack versus the Raiders on the fourth down to end up getting him off the field, and then also created the hit on Brock Purdy that created the goal line interception of Jaden Hicks as well. So the pass rush is starting to get there. He's around 9% as far as quarterback pressure rate, according to the NFL to this point in the season. He's about 10.4, which is a little bit higher, just specifically amongst defensive ends in that defensive end alignment. So I expect him to continue to get better back to that level where he was a really good, I shouldn't say really good, a good pass rusher to end last season. I think you'll see that as the time goes on. Malik Herring, I think, has been a replacement, backup defensive end that you expect. Felix, in some respects, probably has underperformed as a pass rusher. What people hoped he would kind of be coming into his second year, probably has overperformed as a actual edge defender versus the run than what people maybe expected coming into the year. So that's a mixed bag as well. But it is important to state Joshua Uche and Charles Omenihu, what both of those two guys coming back into this edge room is going to do, I think, is only going to take them to a different level to be able to use those guys in those pass rushing situations as well. I can't wait to see, and we'll hopefully get Mike Dana back soon as that pertains to as well. I know that he logged, I think, a limited practice this week, so we'll see what ends up happening as far as Monday night is concerned. Yeah. But give me your thoughts, I think, specifically as it pertains to George Karlaftis and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, because we know Mike Dana hasn't necessarily performed to his standard, and we know the injury kind of situation that's going on throughout that. But give me your thoughts on these two young defensive ends for the Chiefs to start the season.
Yeah, I think for George, he always just seems to be a player that kind of starts every season so far since he's been here, kind of slow, and getting acclimated to how people are playing against him. But then these last couple of weeks, you've seen him pick it up a little bit more. I think it's just him knowing that, we haven't been generating as much of pressure off the edge as we would like, and being able to get home with 4 as we would like. But I think the last couple of weeks, you've seen him kind of have that determination to get to the quarterback a little bit more off the edge. Just had a different plethora of moves that I haven't seen him have in his bag. And, the last couple of years, the spin move that he's kind of been working on is starting to be a little bit more effective up until this point. And I think he's getting off the ball a little bit quicker. So those off-season workouts, I feel like with Tamba Ali are really starting to shine and come through a little bit better with his hand fighting as well. And more of you're starting to see more of a plan of what he wants to do to get after the quarterback. I feel like when he first got here, he was predominantly more of a bull rush type of guy. Was just going to try to beat you with his strength and getting back there. But you kind of seen him take on a little bit more of his finesse moves at this point and try to, kind of play around with those and see what he can do on the field. FAU, I feel like has been serviceable as far as a pass rusher. You like to see the sack numbers, of course, go up a little bit more, but what he's been able to provide as far as setting the edge for this run game, I think has been pivotal for them. And when you flip on the tape, there are points and times in certain matchups where he's winning a lot. And, they might not equate to sacks or anything like that, but the pressures that he's been able to provide for you, I think has really helped as well too. You can clearly see that development and him getting the more amount of reps is really helping him at this point in time. I think he's one of those guys that maybe one of those guys that, in his 4th or 5th year, he starts to really shine just because of the development and how long it's kind of taking him to get acclimated to the league. But I think the sky's still the limit for FAU. Do I foresee him being, a double-digit sack guy? Maybe not. But do I still see him being a serviceable pass rusher and maybe being a guy that can have 5-6 sacks in this defense? I definitely still could see that. So I think the the career I know right now is just not done for FAU, and I know a lot of people want instant success and to see that from him, but some guys it does take a little bit longer for them to develop in the league and learn. So as long as he continues to get the reps that he needs to get in order to keep himself, um, effective. But we'll just see how it plays out from there. So.
Yeah, and I think that the pass rush plan for him is a long term view of how they want to continue to use him effectively. And it's one of those things where you're not going to get instant gratification out of it. You're just not. But it's just it's a slow burn. But you can
Yeah.
see things getting better. His get off better, playing with better functional strength, which I think was a huge key for him coming into this year. So I'm bullish. I'm bullish on what he can look like in year 3, in year 4, for what he can bring to the table for this team. But in the immediate, as far as depth is concerned, George Karlaftis and Felix have done well versus the run on early downs. Now you have Joshua Uche to throw out there on, passing downs, and it kind of gets into as far as the linebacker room is concerned. But also Charles Omenihu coming back will help as far as pass rush is concerned too. So I think this defensive end group has probably performed below its standard. But you see the bones of what is going to allow them to play better over the course of the season. And Joshua Uche now kind of provides you a little bit of a Sam linebacker role to be able to be a backup if needed for what is right now, in my opinion, the best starting 3 in the National Football League. Nick Bolton has been excellent versus the run to start this year. Obviously, we saw the uneven game that he had versus the Ravens to start out, but it's one of those things where it's kind of difficult. First game coming back, he didn't really have his legs under him, and you can see how he struggled mightily in that standpoint as well. So I wasn't all that concerned, but he's had I think it's like a 10% stop percentage this year. Leo Chanel is also almost at 10% as well. Both of those guys have been excellent versus the run, which is kind of their main key. And we've seen the versatility of Leo being able to be that Sam linebacker and occasional edge too. Andrew Tranquil, I think has probably maybe not been as good versus the pass as you would have hoped kind of coming into this year, maybe a step back from last year, though it's gotten better over the course of the season. But I think he's been really good versus the run too, and they've all contributed to what is the best run defense, in my opinion, in the National Football League, along with is the best, front 7 as far as the National Football League is concerned. And so fortunately, knock on wood, these guys have not gotten hurt. And so we haven't had to see kind of the attrition at that position that we saw last year. As long as these 3 are out there, I've been really encouraged by what we've seen from them to this point in the season. What are your thoughts on the linebacker room at the midseason mark?
I will say that Leo Chanel is probably the best secret kept at this point in time in the league. I know a lot of people don't know, outside fans don't know his name just because of, some of the stats may not be there or whatever, but what he's been able to provide and do for this defense, I think has been probably the most pivotal part of what Spags is able to do. Leo's, you can put him in so many different positions. I've seen him play defensive end to the Sam linebacker spot, to the middle linebacker spot, to just moving him. I wouldn't be surprised if next week he's playing safety at some point in time, which we saw last week with Drew Tranquil dropping to safety, which was wild and diabolical from Spags. He obviously
Spags, baby.
Yeah, Spagnuolo has obviously asked a lot from these linebackers this year. I think Nick Bolton has been one of the better run linebackers in the league, especially against the run this year. It's been phenomenal. What I appreciate the most about this linebacking crew is that they will tackle you in space. They don't miss a lot of tackles. They take the right angles. They do the right things. You can just expect them to do the right thing, especially from Nick Bolton and Leo Chanel. Drew Tranquil to me has been, like you said, a little bit underwhelming in the passing game, which you thought he'd be a little bit better with or whatever. But I don't think it's been to the point where it's been a disaster or anything, or where you feel like you got to make a switch or anything like that. And I do think it's gotten a little bit better over these past couple weeks. Just being him able to go out there and make those plays. Yeah, man. To me, I think you're right. You got the best 3, I think, starting trio in the league. They're all very versatile in what you can do with them, and I think they're probably the most outside of Chris Jones, they're probably the most pivotal, important part of this defense and why this defense is successful.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that at all. And I'm glad that you emphasized specifically that tackling point. The way this entire team really has been able to mitigate the missed tackles, been awesome. And it's such a refreshing change of pace of where we have been kind of in the past, where even under Spagnuolo, this team struggled
Yes.
to just get guys out of the backfield in general, missing block. I mean, all over the place. But they've been excellent as far as making sure that they do not give up, easy extra yardage, I should say, versus teams. And so I've been excited from that standpoint too, man. It's been impressive what they've been able to put together this year.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm having flashbacks of all the missed tackles.
Bro, it used to like before. Even the Bob Sutton era was bad, man. Like, and even that some of those defenses were bad defenses. It's just some of the missed tackles was just phenomenal. I think I have PTSD from Anthony Hitchens being here. Shout out to him. He still helped us get a ring. But there were points in times where you just could see on the field, it's like, he's not going to make that tackle.
Not gonna make a tackle.
Yeah.
Yep, there it goes. All right.
So it's great to have linebackers here now that in space. Leo's going to make
those plays.
Yeah, Nick Bolton's going to make that play, So love seeing
Absolutely. Agree wholeheartedly. And so, it's like I said, been encouraged by the ability for them to make sure that these guys are not getting extra yards after the catch on a consistent basis. So that being said, kind of moving on to what I think also kind of applies to one of the hallmarks as far as the DB room is they haven't been awful. I'd say they've been pretty good as far as not giving up a lot of separation. Sometimes teams have been able to make some contested catches versus them, but they've also been pretty good at limiting yak, which I think is important to say. Trent McDuffie performed to his all-pro level to this point in the season. I don't think there's any complaints. I don't think there's anything really more that needs to be said outside of that. He continues to perform as one of the best cornerbacks in the National Football League. Just a home run of the pick by Brett Veach, certainly to start out. They've done a great job with him. Continue to develop and being asked to do more as well, with no L'Jarius Sneed, obviously, to really be the leader within that cornerback room as well. Second guy, Jalen Watson had performed great to this point in the season. And obviously we know about the injury that now is probably going to keep him out to the playoffs at earliest. Just he was performing as one of also the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And not just, making sure not giving up separation, but also playing at the catch point effectively well. And when those two guys were out there, you felt you had shades of what was last year's cornerback duo within Snead and McDuffie as well. And so it's a shame to lose Watson. Then you get to a little bit of a mixed bag as well, and dealing with, what has been kind of uneven play, I'll say, from the other guys. They tried out continue to try out kind of Chris Roland Wallace in the slot. He made the interception versus Purdy. Did not have as good of a game, I'll say, versus the Raiders. Gave up the touchdown, but it's kind of just a really nice play by the guy that, with the wide receiver that they caught it. Najee Johnson, I think, has performed admirably, specifically in zone. I think he's had a really good feel for it. Man coverage has been uneven and obviously got beat a few times and had some penalty issues as well. But the guy that I think has kind of underperformed has been Joshua Williams. And coming into the season with the Jerry Sneed moving on, it was kind of Williams and Watson who's going to end up winning that cornerback 2 role, and specifically who's going to take it over when the season really begins. Watson took it and ran with it. Williams has not really been able to perform it to the standard that we've seen him play in the past. And specifically as it pertains to his ability to kind of step in now that Watson went down, didn't necessarily step up well. So the thing that it comes down to for me is moving forward, is he going to be able to perform to that level? Is he going to be able to perform better? And if not, then it's going to be tough. But give me your thoughts as far as the cornerback room to start out this season.
Yeah, I thought it was humming when you had Jalen Watson, which I want to say a lot of y'all didn't want Jalen Watson starting. There was a lot of talk, especially in training camp, about, we need a CB2, we need to go out and get somebody and stuff like that. And a lot of people didn't have a lot of faith in Jalen Watson at first. And I think I continuously came on this podcast and told y'all that Jalen Watson would be fine. I feel like he could hold this position just off the experience that he's had. Especially in playing in college. I feel like he played in one of the better passing conferences in the Pac-12, especially being out there at Wash U or whatever, or Washington State, and being able to go up against some of the better receivers in the nation. And that's one reason why I felt like he would be successful here or whatever. Yeah, the Josh Williams thing. I, I won't say that I don't like the kid, because I think that he can play a specific role for this team. Bigger cornerback. Love. I think he's better in certain matchups. Um, Going against bigger receivers, things like that, where he can kind of use his physicality and things of that nature. Tends to get a little handsy, especially once he gets beat and stuff like that. I think the experience alone is kind of what he lacks. Playing obviously at a lower tier, well, I won't say lower. I gotta be careful with my words. Playing at a lower level in a school that he came out at that point in time, I think Fayetteville State or whatever. You don't see the level of competition that you may see, at the NFL level. Now you're going from playing against guys, you know, nothing against none of those guys or anything like that, but playing against guys that aren't at the same level as these guys that are in the NFL who are the best in the world. So the experience, I think, alone is kind of what hasn't really helped Josh Williams at this point. Um, I think trying to think who else. Nazi Johnson. I feel like you said, has played really phenomenal in zone. There have been some struggles, in man at points in times, especially I think when he goes up against a bigger receiver, a little bit maybe out, match physicality wise or whatever. But still, I think to me, in my opinion, I think he's probably the guy that they have to roll with to start opposite side of Trip McDuffie. I just think that he moves a little bit better, can make up. I think he has the ability to make up for his mistakes at points in times if he is to get beat and things of that nature. So I think that's probably who they have to go with rolling forward. Hopefully he can come back. Obviously he's not going to play this week just because of the concussion protocol, but hopefully he can get healthy, get back out there on the field. Christian Roland Wallace, I still would like to see a little bit more from him. Still don't feel like I've really seen everything. Up until this point, he's been special team kind of guy. So I kind of give him a pass on the Raiders game a little bit, to kind of get forced into that role of having to come down and playing the nickel already or playing the slot a little bit. It's a little bit much to ask for an undrafted guy, just to come in and do that. But he's made this roster for a reason. They obviously have a lot of faith. They see something in him that a lot of people don't see. So I think just need a little bit more time, a little bit more development with him. But outside of that, I think this cornerback room will be fine as long as the pass rush gets a little bit better. And I feel like that's the reason why they went out and got a guy like Josh O'Shea to generate a little bit more pass rush. When you can get to the quarterback better, you don't have to, cover as long. So.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. That's ultimately kind of where I land on it. Is just you have the ability now to supplement and kind of augment what you bring to the table as far as pass rush, and that's what it's going to have to help up this DB room, because right now they've had some attrition in the quarterback room with Watson going out, Nazi going out with a concussion. You got to get after the quarterback to kind of mitigate some of those things, and guys like Joshua Uche and Charles Omenihu and George Kalafdis continue to play better. All of those things will help that out as well. And as far as the safeties are concerned, I think this is kind of straightforward. I think Brian Cook has come back from the serious injury that he had to end last year, played well, been physical against the run. I think he's been pretty good as far as pass coverage is concerned too. I was going to say, Shamari Connor, I think has actually performed maybe a little bit overperformed as far as what my expectations were in coverage. His stats certainly are pretty good as far as that's concerned. Been able, again, to kind of mitigate yards after the catch. So maybe some shorter passes that have been completed, but the guys aren't, necessarily creating a lot of yards after that. So I've been impressed by what he's brought to the table. He's been asked to do a little bit more coming into the season. I think he's performed well. It's been the same story that it's kind of been since Justin Reed got here, bringing a level of physicality, being able to be effective in the run game, also coming down and stop guys after they make catches. Some issues as far as guarding tight ends and being beat over the top and with some speed as well. And that's just kind of the mixed bag that you get with Justin Reed. There's a level of physicality and leadership that he brings to the table as well. That, again, instilling the ability to tackle fundamentally well on a consistent basis, that does matter. So safeties have kind of looked as expected, in my opinion, maybe a little bit better play from Shamari Connor. Haven't seen a lot of Jaden Hicks. He obviously got the interception. That's probably not going to change barring injury. We kind of know how these things go, and I'm okay with that. I think that he'll be more than willing and ready to take over the Justin Reed role going into next year. So I'm good as far as what that is concerned, and the safeties that performed to this point. How do you feel about the safety room?
Yeah, I love what I've seen from the safety. I think this is one of the best safety rooms in the league as well, too, as far as what they can do versatility wise. Shamari Connor has been a revelation. Man, been able to put that guy pretty much anywhere. He's a Swiss Army knife for Steve Spagnuolo at this point, being able to come down and play in the nickel, but also play that deep safety role as well at times too. I think he's a guy that eventually people will start to see as a turnover machine, especially if he gets the ball thrown his way. And hopefully Spags can put him in a little bit more positions where he can create some more turnovers for us. Brian Cook feel like come back from his injury pretty well. It's always tough to acclimate yourself after going through such a devastating injury, to get back out there, trusting your body again, trusting what you can do. So I think he's shown that he's been able to do that for the foreseeable future. Justin Reed is what he is, man. I know a lot of people, harp on him about his ability in coverage and things of that nature. And I knew when we signed him, I knew from day one that he wasn't gonna be that type of safety for us, But what I do appreciate about him is being able, like you said, to have that kind of physicality, bring that kind of physicality to this defense. And I think I put in the group message last week is one thing. One thing I don't have to worry about Justin Reed is tackling in open space. He will come up, he will hit you, he will put a pop on you or whatever, and you don't have to worry about him ever missing. I don't think I've seen him miss a tackle in open space since he's been here. So that's been phenomenal to have in this defense. I think that goes very underrated by a lot of fans at this point. A lot of people don't take that into consideration and appreciate that as well. Coverage ability wise, yeah, he lacks, in that area. It's just something I don't expect from him to be great at all. At this point, it is what it is. I do believe that with the injuries that they've had at corner, I do believe Jaden Hicks deserves an opportunity to play a little bit more. Like to see what he can be able to do, but in the spots and roles they've put him in, obviously came up with the interception in the red zone last week, or not last week, against the 49ers. And that's something that we seen him be able to do in college as well, as kind of create some turnovers for us. And then I've seen him also come up and really lay some hits on some people in the run game as well too. So excited for his future. I think right now the reason he's not playing is just because of how Justin Reed is kind of playing. I think he's kind of playing his spot and his role at this point in time. But I do think the injuries to the secondary, to the cornerback room, may force Steve Spagnuolo to use Jaden Hicks a little bit more. And hopefully he goes out there and performs and balls. So, yeah, man, love the safety room. Still think it's one of the more underrated parts of this defense at this point in time. So let's continue to keep it rolling.
Absolutely. And so That's kind of the all positions. We'll say really quickly as far as special teams. Matt Araiza has performed as one of the best punters in the National Football League, if not the best. Harrison Butker is the best kicker in the National Football League. Nobody I'll take over him. They've been fine as far as the holding is
Including
concerned.
you, Brandon Aubrey.
I think the ability to return has been fine. Obviously new rules as far as that's concerned. They obviously lost one of their return options. Who got hurt? Who did I just make up that got hurt? Because obviously Carson Steele's been returning. Sky Moore. Yeah, there you go. So Miko probably will be.
I don't know why they ever had Sky return anyway. But
so Miko Hartman is probably going to be an upgrade over Sky Moore in returning game, and he's been fine as far as punt returns too. So we're good. We're good. No issues as far as special teams. Shout out to Dave Toe, one of the best in the business as far as that's concerned. So we're getting under here. It's just at a nice hour and 30-minute mark before we're finishing this up. This ended up turning out to be a really long episode. We appreciate you guys for tuning in as far as our midseason review is concerned. We will have Tell the Truth on Tuesday, wrapping up what will be Monday Night Football versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Anything, DG, before we go ahead and get on out of here?
Nah, man. Everybody enjoy, a great day of Sunday football, stress-free football from the Chiefs Kingdom perspective. We'll be on, Monday night is our time. And, wish everybody the best of luck in their parlays and their bets,
Absolutely. And do make sure you check out, we will have the Tell the Truth Trifecta coming out for you Monday morning for you guys to get those bets in for the Monday Night Football game. But yeah, without further ado, I'm DMac. That's DG, man. Tell the truth. Peace out.